snow drifted across a silent Colorado town, until the night a bruised waitress stumbled backward under the hands of 3 intruders. In the darkened diner, fear wasn't just present, it was waiting. But so was he, Cole Merritt, FBI, a man who had failed to save one life and swore he would never fail another. At his side, Shadow, 4 years old, scarred, sensing danger before it took shape. The moment the lights snapped off, the world split open. Metal struck bone. A scream cut the night, and a German shepherd threw himself into the path of a weapon meant to end a girl's life. That single moment didn't just save Emma. It exposed a secret network, a brother's betrayal, a town's awakening, and a shadowed figure known only as the Gray Coat. If this was the night the truth surfaced, then what else is rising with it? Tell me where you think this story is heading. And if you believe in courage, faith, and God's quiet miracles, like, comment, and subscribe for more. The snow didn't fall gently that night. It scraped sideways across the highway, flung by a merciless wind that turned the world into a white blur. When Cole Merritt pushed open the diner door, the bell above it gave a thin, exhausted jingle, like even it had been fighting the storm. Warm air washed over him. Coffee, fried potatoes, old vinyl booths, and a country song leaking from a radio that had survived its owners. Shadow walked at his side, silent but alert. A 4-year-old German shepherd with sable black-gray fur, built like a soldier and moving like a whisper. His amber-brown eyes scanned everything before Cole even took a step. Cole removed his gloves, shook snow from his black FBI tactical jacket, and let his gray-blue eyes sweep the room. Tall, strong, jaw dusted with tired stubble. He looked like a man carved from sleepless nights and responsibility. He slid into the corner booth. Shadow settled beneath the table, head low, ears high, attention everywhere. At the counter, Martha Hale, late 50s, round, warm, her curly light brown hair pinned in a half-defeated bun, poured coffee with the precision of someone who had been doing it forever. She spotted them instantly. "Well now," she said, voice rich as warm syrup. "Evening, Agent Merritt." Her smile widened at the dog. "And evening to you too, handsome." Shadow's tail thumped once. Cole's eyebrow lifted 0.5 millimeter, the closest he came to smiling. Then Emma appeared, a quiet presence, barely more than a whisper in the room. A young waitress, early 20s, slim in a fragile way. Soft brown hair tied low. Cream-colored uniform under a beige sweater. Brown apron. And eyes. Brown, gentle, tired. Like someone who'd learned to breathe around fear. She carried a menu in trembling hands. "Hi," she said softly. "Coffee's coming. Want a minute with the menu?" Shadow lifted his head. Sniffed once. Froze. Cole noticed. Shadow only froze like that when the air carried something dark, fear, blood, or things people tried to hide under long sleeves. Emma leaned closer. Shadow stared harder. To ease the moment, Emma offered him a shaky smile. "I'm not trying to steal your fries," she whispered. Her sleeve slipped, just an inch. But enough. Cole saw the faint, yellowing bruises circling her wrist. Old ones, healing unevenly, the kind made by fingers closing too hard. Too often. His jaw tightened. He didn't comment. Not yet. She hurried away, shoulders rounded, steps careful. Not in the graceful way of a dancer, but the cautious way of someone who'd learned that taking up too much space made her a target. The bell above the door shrieked again, sharp and ugly. 3 teenage boys stumbled in, trailing snow and noise. Loud jackets, louder egos. Eyes looking for trouble like it was oxygen. The diner stiffened. Shadow didn't move, but his ears turned, Slow, precise, surgical. Emma approached them, back straight, tray in hand. "Evening, boys," she said evenly. "I'll need to see some ID before I serve anything alcoholic." The tall one rolled his eyes so hard it was a miracle they didn't fall out. "Oh, come on," he groaned. "It's just a couple of beers." Emma smiled, tight at the edges. "House rules. No ID, no alcohol." It should have ended there. But boys full of insecurity and borrowed bravado rarely know when to stop. The one in the lead, thin mouth, restless eyes, stepped forward, too close, too fast. "Relax," he said. Then he grabbed her, fist closing on her uniform, yanking her forward. Her feet slipped on melted snow. The tray flipped. Glass exploded on the floor. The diner fell silent. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Coffee froze mid-pour in Martha's hands. Emma crashed to her knees. She gasped, tried to stand. And her sweater sleeve slid down, this time fully. And the bruise across her shoulder, dark purple, yellow edges, shaped unmistakably like fingers, filled the room like a scream no one had allowed her to make. Shadow growled, a sound that vibrated through the floor. Low, warning, old as wolves, recognizing harm long before humans admitted it. Cole's vision tunneled. For a moment, he wasn't in a diner. He was in a narrow hallway from years ago, kicking down a door too late. A woman lying still on a stained carpet, while Shadow pressed his head to her hand and made the same sound he was making now. He would not be late again. Emma scrambled, pulling her sleeve up with frantic hands. "I'm fine," she whispered. I fell yesterday. It's nothing. I'm sorry. Sorry. For being hurt. For bleeding. For being seen." Shadow stepped forward, shoulders rising. And then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The radio cracked, cut off, then hissed with static, a strange, electric sound that didn't belong in the room. Shadow stopped growling. He stared at the ceiling, then the door, then Emma, completely still, as if he'd caught a scent carried not by air, but by fate. The hair on Cole's neck lifted. The diner inhaled. The lights buzzed back to life. Conversation resumed. But nothing felt the same. Cole moved. He knelt beside Emma, ignoring the teenage boys entirely. Her hands trembled as she tried to sweep the broken glass toward herself. "You're bleeding," he said quietly. She jerked her hand back, ashamed. "I'm sorry. I'll pay for the glasses. I didn't mean—" "It's not your fault," he said. 3 simple words. Her breath hitched as if they hurt. Martha hurried over, red apron swishing. "Emma, sweetheart, don't touch that glass. Your hands—" But Emma wouldn't look up. She was too busy trying to make herself smaller, quieter, invisible. Cole stood. Now he faced the boys. "You don't put your hands on people," he said. Not loud, not angry. Just undeniable. Not to scare them. Not to show off. Not ever. The tall boy swallowed. Shadow stepped forward, lips just barely parted. The apology came fast. "Sorry," the leader muttered. The others echoed him, pale beneath the fluorescent lights. Martha pointed at the door, her voice like iron dipped in honey. "Out, before I start remembering I own a baseball bat." They left, not bravely. The diner softened, but only a little. Emma stood shakily. She brushed glass dust from her apron, lips trembling. "I'm fine," she whispered again. "Really, I get in the way." Cole didn't interrupt, not until she finally lifted her eyes to his. Fear, shame, a lifetime of rehearsed apologies. And behind it, that bruise, that awful, silent bruise. He stepped closer. Shadow stood at his side like a vow. "You shouldn't have to move out of the way," Cole said gently. Not in your own life. Emma blinked. Her breath caught. Cole's voice lowered, firm, but almost tender. There's someone who's been bothering your life for far too long. He paused. And I'm not going to let them keep doing it. Shadow pressed against his leg, gaze steady on Emma, as if he agreed. If this story moved you tonight, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For sometimes God sends protection through strangers, storms, and unexpected miracles. The storm had softened just enough for the wind to howl instead of scream. But inside the rusty lantern diner, the quiet felt colder than the night outside. The 3 teenage boys were gone now, leaving nothing behind but melting snow, scattered apologies, and the bruise on Emma's shoulder that no one could unsee. Cole stood a few feet from her, hand resting gently on Shadow's harness. He wasn't towering over her, but he was close enough to catch her if she fell again. Shadow stayed alert beneath him, not growling, just watching, breathing in every detail the human eye missed. He leaned forward, nose brushing the edge of Emma's sweater sleeve. And then, that sound. A low, tense rit vibrated from his chest. Not loud, not meant to frighten, but meant for Cole. And for anyone who understood danger the way a K9 did. Shadow only made that sound when he smelled old blood, old fear, or the remnants of someone's adrenaline pressed into skin like fingerprints of trauma. Emma jerked her hand back instantly. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Really. Please, don't make a big deal out of this." Her voice trembled, her shoulders trembled, even her breathing trembled. She reached toward the broken glass, but Cole caught her wrist, gently, carefully, as if she were made of paper. The moment he touched her, she flinched, not from pain, from memory. He let go at once, but the truth was already there between them. "Emma," Cole said quietly, "you don't have to clean this up." "I do," she insisted. "I made the mess. I always—" She stopped herself, as if choking on the parts she wasn't allowed to say aloud. Martha stepped forward, her red apron swaying, warm hand settling on Emma's tense shoulder. "Sweetheart, sit for a minute," Martha murmured. "You're shaking." Emma lowered herself into the booth stiffly, like she wasn't sure if sitting was safe. Shadow walked toward her, slow, deliberate, his nose brushing her knee, ears tipped forward with gentle curiosity. Cole watched the interaction closely. Shadow wasn't posturing. He wasn't suspicious. He was protective. Deeply, instinctively protective. Emma kept her gaze down, her fingers twisted in her apron. "I just fall a lot," she murmured. Cole shook his head once. "That bruise isn't from a fall?" Emma's breath caught. Her chin dipped, her shoulders folded in like a bird trying to hide its broken wing. "Please," she whispered, "don't get involved. If you do, it'll get worse." The words were soft, but they carried the weight of years. Shadow reacted before Cole did. His ears snapped up. His tail went rigid. His whole posture sharpened as if someone had just whispered a secret only he could hear. Cole looked down. Shadow was staring, not at Emma, but toward the diner's back hallway. Something had changed in the air. And then it happened. A sudden flicker, lights blinking once, twice, buzzing like trapped electricity. The radio stuttered mid-song. Static replaced the melody for a breathless second. Shadow barked, one sharp, explosive note. Not from aggression, but from warning. A bark he used in the field when something unseen approached, when danger crept in without footsteps. Martha gasped and grabbed the counter. Emma froze entirely, as if the sound had struck her heart first. Cole rose halfway from his chair, body tense, hand drifting toward his belt out of instinct more than threat. Shadow stood still now, but everything about him vibrated with alertness. It lasted only a moment, a strange, electric moment. And then the diner settled again. But the air never went back to normal. Cole sat slowly, eyes fixed on Emma. "Shadow's never wrong," he murmured. Her lips trembled, her hands clenched. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend herself. She just whispered, "Please, don't ask who did it." Martha sighed softly. "She won't talk about it," she said. "Not to me, not to anyone. But this isn't the first time she's come in bruised like that." Emma winced, as if Martha had peeled back a secret she'd buried too deep. "I need this job," Emma whispered. "I need to stay quiet. If I don't, he'll get angry." Cole exhaled slowly. Quiet anger. Controlled anger. The kind forged from heartbreak, not rage. He sat beside Shadow, his voice dropping. "You didn't ask for trouble tonight," he said, "and you don't deserve what's happening to you." Emma squeezed her eyes shut. "You don't know me. I don't have to." Her eyes opened, wide and wet. "Fear leaves a scent," Cole said softly. "Shadow knows it, and I do too." Emma shook her head, fear spilling from her in waves. "Please, don't follow me home. Don't try to help. Just let it go." But Cole had already heard too much, and Shadow had smelled too much. Martha brought over a small first aid kit, cleaning the cut on Emma's palm. "It's shallow," Martha murmured. "But you're going home early tonight, sweetheart." Emma nodded. But her body didn't move. Her legs seemed frozen to the floor. And when she finally stood, the fear in her posture was unmistakable. Not fear of the snow, not fear of the night. Fear of whoever waited in her life beyond the diner's door. "I'm okay," she repeated. A whisper, a ritual, a lie she wished would become true. Cole didn't argue. He just watched. And Shadow watched even harder. Emma pulled her thin jacket tight around her bruised shoulders, glanced at the windows as if expecting a shadow to peel itself free, and whispered, "Good night." The bell above the door chimed as she stepped into the cold. Her silhouette blurred into the snow. Shadow growled, a low, uneasy rumble, not anger, but prophecy. Cole rested a hand on the dog's head. "I know," he said softly. "We're not done." Shadow pressed closer, eyes still locked on the door Emma had walked through, as if he could still smell the danger waiting for her. Outside, the storm swallowed her whole. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes God sends his signs through storms, shadows, and unexpected miracles. Morning crept over the Colorado mountains in a pale wash of gray, the kind of light that felt unsure of itself. Too weak to be day, too late to still be night. Cole Merritt had not slept. The coffee cup on his kitchen counter sat untouched. Shadow paced twice across the living room, nails clicking softly on the hardwood floor, before settling at Cole's feet with a frustrated huff. The dog rarely showed impatience, but he felt it now. Cole did too, because Emma never showed up for her morning shift. Martha had called him at dawn, voice tight, saying, "She didn't come in, Cole. That girl never misses work. Something's wrong." Martha didn't dramatize. She simply knew people, and Cole knew Shadow's instincts even better. By 8 a.m., Cole and the German Shepherd were in the government SUV, the tires crunching over ice as they cut through the quiet residential streets toward Emma's address, a small, weathered duplex squeezed between two larger homes. The snow on her walkway was disturbed, not evenly, but dragged, like someone had stumbled through it in a hurry. Shadow jumped out before Cole even turned off the engine, tail stiff, ears pricked, body angled forward like an arrow released from a bow. Cole approached the front door, expecting resistance. Instead, the knob turned. The door creaked open. A house should not greet strangers like that. Shadow stepped inside first, nose low, shoulder muscles tense. Cole followed, hand near his belt, though he hadn't drawn his weapon. The air inside was still, too still. No TV, no heater hum, only silence thick enough to touch. Shadow's growl came first. Quiet, deep, a warning unmistakable to the man who had trained him. It meant violence happened here, recently, within the last day. Cole felt his chest tighten. He moved deeper into the living room. The curtains were half torn, a lamp knocked sideways, and a chair shoved sharply out of place. A cold mug of tea sat on the table, still stained with the faint outline of a lipstick mark. Then he saw her. Emma was on the floor beside the sofa, knees pulled to her chest, arms shielding her head, body trembling in small, residual shudders. Her cheek was wet with dried tears, and a fresh bruise swollen along her jaw. Her beige sweater was ripped near the shoulder, revealing more bruises beneath. She did not look at them coming. She didn't hear them at all, because someone was still in the room. A man stood over her, tall, thin, early 30s, messy black hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes bloodshot with exhaustion and alcohol. His gray hoodie hung crooked off one shoulder, and the snake tattoo winding up his right forearm flexed as he clenched his fist. Tyler Rowan. Shadow growled louder now. Emma flinched at the sound, thinking it was meant for her. Cole acted before Tyler could speak or move. He crossed the room in 2 firm strides, seized Tyler's wrist, twisted, and pinned him against the wall with one fluid motion. Tyler gasped, more surprise than pain. FBI, Cole said, voice low but unmistakable. Move again, and you won't like the outcome. Tyler froze, not because of the badge, but because of Shadow. The German shepherd planted himself directly in front of Emma, body forming a shield of fur and muscle. His lips curled enough to reveal white teeth, but his eyes stayed fixed on Tyler with the sharp, judgmental calm of a creature who understood who the predator was in the room. Cole tightened his grip. Step away from her, now. Tyler's breathing stuttered. Up close, Cole could see him better. Thin but strong, face too pale, trembling not from fear, but from withdrawal or a sleepless night. His shirt smelled faintly of sweat, cheap whiskey, and something acidic. The scent of a man whose life had been falling apart long before this moment. Tyler spoke through clenched teeth. She wouldn't listen. She kept saying she wanted to leave, that she'd talk to someone. His voice broke into anger. She can't talk to anyone. Cole shoved him harder into the wall. You touch her like this again, and talking will be the least of your problems. Tyler hissed. She's my sister. Half-sister, Cole corrected. And she's terrified of you. Tyler opened his mouth, then shut it. His eyes flicked, for just a second, to Emma, and that second told the truth. Cole cuffed him, muscles coiled with professional precision. Shadow maintained position, refusing to budge from Emma's side. Only once Tyler was secured did Cole kneel on the floor. Emma, he said softly. It's Cole. You're safe. She didn't look up right away. Her breath came in uneven, shallow bursts. Slowly, painfully slowly, she lowered her arms. Her eyes found Shadow first. The dog's posture softened at once. He lowered his head and nudged her knee gently, careful not to startle her more. Emma whispered, I didn't mean to make trouble. You didn't, Cole answered. Someone else did. Her lip quivered. She wiped a tear with the back of her hand, then tried to sit up straighter. I told him I was leaving last night. I said I was done hiding his messes, and he... She choked on the rest. Tyler snarled from behind Cole. Don't make me sound like a monster. I didn't mean to. Shadow snapped his head toward him with a low growl, so sharp Tyler flinched and shut up instantly. But Cole wasn't focused on Tyler anymore. He was focused on the bruises. They weren't random. They weren't chaotic. They were patterned, neat, circular, controlled. One on the shoulder, two along the ribs, one at the wrist shaped like a grip. Some older, some newer. This wasn't a single outburst. This was a routine. Emma, Cole asked carefully, how long has this been happening? She wiped her nose with her sleeve. A while, she whispered. I kept thinking he'd stop. He's my brother, even if only half. He used to be kind. He used to protect me. Her fingers tightened. But lately, something changed. Her voice dropped. And he started doing things that weren't just anger, things connected to people he works for. Cole felt his pulse slow, cold, focused. People he works for? Emma hesitated, fear creeping back. But Shadow nudged her again, as if urging her on. There's something in the kitchen, she whispered. He hid it last night. I heard him talking to someone on the phone. He said the deal can't fall through. Tyler jerked against the cuffs. You don't know what you're saying. Cole ignored him. He motioned to Shadow. The dog trotted into the kitchen, nose lowered, moving with precise sweeps. Within seconds, he stopped at the bottom of an old wooden cabinet. He pressed his paw against a narrow gap between the cabinet and the wall. Cole reached in and pulled out a small, tightly rolled piece of paper. Shadow sat back, tail stiff, gaze locked on the object. Cole unfurled it. A symbol stared back at him. A black circle intersected by 3 angular lines. He knew that symbol. FBI knew it. It belonged to a weapons trafficking ring stretching across the Midwest. One Cole had been assigned to track for months without a breakthrough. Emma wasn't just afraid of Tyler. She was afraid of the men behind him. Cole folded the paper slowly. Emma, he said, voice gentle but firm, your fear, it's not just about him, is it? Her eyes filled again, not with tears, but with the terrible relief of someone whose secret had finally been spoken aloud. No, she whispered. It's not. Shadow sat between them, silent and watchful, as if accepting the weight of what came next. Cole exhaled. The truth was bigger now, more dangerous, and far from over. All right, he murmured, standing. Then we start here. He looked at Shadow. Shadow looked back, a silent agreement, and outside the wind rattled against the unlocked door like a warning or a prophecy. If this chapter moved your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes God guides us into storms only to lead us toward miracles. Snow drifted softly outside the field office windows, flakes tapping against the glass as if urging Cole Merritt to move faster. He sat at his desk, Shadow lying at his feet like a stone guardian, while the small evidence bag containing the rolled paper from Emma's house rested under the lamp's pale glow. He had barely slept. Neither had Shadow. The dog's eyes followed every sound in the building, as if he expected danger to walk through the walls themselves. Across the small room, Special Agent Marcus Hale typed fiercely at a laptop. Marcus was a tall man in his early 40s, with a shaved head, thoughtful dark eyes, and a build thick as a linebacker. Strong but softened by too many hours bent over case files. His presence always carried a mix of patience and fatigue, the kind a man earned after a decade of interviewing victims and hunting suspects who slipped between legal cracks. Today, though, fatigue was winning. He rubbed his forehead and muttered, "Cole, you need to see this." Cole stood, shadow rising with him in one smooth motion. Marcus turned the laptop so both could see. On screen was an archived email. The subject line, "Information about a dangerous group. Please," sent months earlier. Anonymous. No sender name. No return address. But encrypted metadata, now decrypted, revealed the source. Emma Rowland. The quiet girl in the cream uniform. The girl who apologized for bleeding. The girl who told him not to get involved. Cole felt his breath settle somewhere between shock and sorrow. Marcus lowered his voice. "She signed it. Someone who's tired of being afraid." "Cole?" "She tried to warn us months ago." Shadow let out a sharp, small exhale, almost a whine. Cole placed a hand on the dog's head. The email contained more. References to a man Emma overheard while cleaning tables late one night. A man described only as the one in the gray coat. The one they all fear. Cole's jaw tightened. The gray coat. The upper rung of the weapons ring. Marcus nodded grimly. She heard Tyler talking to him. She risked everything just to send this. He paused, leaning back in his chair with a heavy sigh. "Cole? She's been living in a war zone while serving coffee to smiling strangers." Shadow's ears flicked sharply, as if the dog understood the sentence word for word. Cole closed the laptop gently. "I need to show her this." Marcus looked at him with a sadness that suggested he'd seen too many stories like Emma's end too soon. "Be careful with her, Cole. Victims like that, they've been taught their whole lives that nobody comes." Cole didn't answer. He simply called Shadow to his side and walked out. Emma sat on the edge of the small cot in a private room inside the station's safe wing, hands bundled in the sleeves of a borrowed sweater. She looked so small in the harsh fluorescent lighting. Her hair was still damp from where she'd splashed water on her face earlier, hoping, perhaps, to erase the night. When Cole entered, she stiffened slightly. Not fear, but the tension of someone expecting bad news. Shadow trotted in, tail low but sweeping gently as he approached her. Emma's lips quivered into a shaky smile. "Hi," she whispered, letting her fingers brush the fur behind his ears. Shadow leaned into her touch, slowly, deliberately. Cole sat across from her. "I need to show you something." Her breath caught. "Is it about Tyler?" "No," Cole said softly. "It's about you." He opened the laptop to the anonymous email. Her eyes widened instantly. Her hand rose to her mouth, fingers trembling. "How did you—" I didn't think anyone would ever read it." "You sent this," Cole said gently, "months before last night." She stared at the screen, as if looking at a younger, desperate version of herself. "I was cleaning the back room at the diner," she whispered. "And I heard Tyler. He was arguing with someone over the phone. He said he didn't care what the gray coat wanted, but he couldn't keep hiding things forever." Her voice cracked. "I didn't even know their names. I didn't understand what they were doing. I just knew people were getting hurt. And I thought, maybe if someone listened, maybe if someone cared." Her breath collapsed into a sob she tried too hard to swallow. "I just wanted someone to stop them before it got worse." Shadow lifted his head and nudged her knee again, as if telling her she didn't have to hide that pain. Emma let the tears slip freely. Cole leaned forward. "Emma, you're braver than you think. You risked your life to help strangers." She shook her head quickly. "No, I was terrified. I'm still terrified." "Being afraid," Cole said softly, "and doing the right thing anyway. That's called courage." Emma looked away, eyes shimmering. You don't know what fear is like when it sleeps in the same house as you. Cole inhaled slowly, because she wasn't wrong. But he did know another kind of fear, one that lived like a ghost behind his ribs. "I haven't told you something," he said quietly, "and maybe I should." Emma looked up, surprised. Shadow settled beside Cole's boot, sensing the shift. "A few years ago," Cole began, "I responded to a domestic violence call. A woman had reached out for help. She whispered her location, cried quietly on the phone. I was 10 minutes away. 10 minutes. His voice thinned slightly. When I got there, we were too late. She didn't make it." Emma's breath hitched. "Shadow found her first," Cole continued. "He lay beside her and refused to move. He stayed there for hours, wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink." He looked at Emma, eyes steady but lined with old, unspoken guilt. "I swore I would never be late again. Not if I could help it." Emma pressed a hand over her heart, as if trying to soothe something breaking inside her. "Cole, I'm so sorry." "You don't have to be," he murmured. "Just don't face this alone." For the first time since he'd met her, Emma held his gaze without dropping it. She looked at him the way a drowning person looks at the hand reaching into the water. And he understood she had been alone for far too long. Shadow suddenly rose from the floor, rigid, alert. His ears shot toward the door, hackles lifting. A moment later, a faint metallic sound echoed down the hallway. Emma froze. Cole stood immediately. The sound wasn't loud, not threatening. But Shadow reacted as if recognizing something familiar. A scent, a presence, an old ghost. Emma whispered, "He's here." Her voice trembled, not with certainty but with instinct. Cole reached for the doorknob. Shadow pressed against his leg, ready. The hallway outside was empty, quiet, still. But Shadow wasn't wrong. He never was. Cole closed the door slowly, heart tightening with unwelcome clarity. Someone had been near, someone who didn't want to be seen. Cole returned to Emma, speaking softly. "We're going to figure this out. You're not going back there. Not alone." Emma wiped her tears, breathing deep as if trying to steady a life that had never allowed steadiness. "I feel like everything I've kept hidden is unraveling," she whispered. "It is," Cole answered gently, "so we can finally put it back together the right way." For a long moment, neither spoke. Shadow settled between them, watching the door with the solemn patience of a guardian born to fight darkness. Between the fear, the guilt, the bruises, and the truth finally spoken. Something quiet and tender bloomed in the room. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two lives touching where their wounds overlapped. Cole exhaled softly. "Emma, you did the right thing, even when it hurt." Emma's fingers lightly touched Shadow's fur. "And you came," she whispered. Her voice shook with sincerity. "You came for me." Cole looked at her with something unspoken, but unmistakably real. "I always will." Outside, the snow thickened, a curtain drawn over the world, as if God himself wanted to give them a moment before the storm continued. If this chapter moved your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because miracles often begin the moment someone finally chooses courage. Evening settled over the small Colorado town like a bruise blooming under fading light. The streets were quiet, too quiet, as if the snow itself were holding its breath. In the safe wing of the FBI field office, Cole Merritt reviewed case notes with restless focus, while Shadow paced in slow circles, his paws clicking a rhythm of unease. The dog's ribs still drew tight breaths, recovering from the tension of the last 2 days. But his body was coiled with something else, an urgency he could not express in words. Across the room, Special Agent Marcus Hale closed a phone call and rubbed his temples. His thick fingers, calloused from years of fieldwork, trembled slightly when he lowered the handset. "Cole," he said, voice low. "Tyler's been released." Cole's head snapped up. "Released? On whose order?" Marcus shook his head, exhaling hard. "Lawyer showed up. High-level clearance. Someone pulled strings. No explanation. But I can guess." "The gray coat," Cole muttered. His jaw tightened with controlled fury. Shadow growled, a deep, instinctive rumble that vibrated against Cole's boot. Marcus continued. "The judge said Tyler was no longer a threat. But the speed of it. Someone powerful intervened. Someone who needed him free." His dark eyes met Cole's. "Be careful tonight." Cole didn't waste another second. He grabbed his coat, called Shadow, and headed toward the door. Emma was working her evening shift. If they'd released Tyler early, they weren't done with her, not by a long shot. The Rusty Lantern diner glowed warmly against the dimming horizon, a small island of light in a sea of winter dark. Inside, Emma moved behind the counter with mechanical precision, her hands steady but her eyes flicking to the door every few minutes. She wore a thick beige sweater Martha had lent her, sleeves pulled low to hide the marks. The diner's regulars noticed her unease, but said nothing. Kindness often came in watching from a distance, waiting to be needed. Martha, bustling between tables, paused beside Emma. The older woman's curly light brown hair was pinned neatly tonight, her face lined with a tension she tried to disguise as cheer. "You sure you want to work the evening shift, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Emma forced a smile. "I need the hours, and I don't want to sit alone in a room right now." Martha's eyes softened. "Then stay close to the counter. If anything feels wrong, you call me." Emma nodded, but her gaze drifted again to the door, as if expecting someone or something to walk through it at any moment. The clock above the grill ticked past 9 p.m. The diner had thinned. Snow tapped softly against the windows. Then, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then died. The diner plunged into darkness. Emma gasped. Martha froze mid-step. The hum of the refrigerator sputtered to silence. A second later, a sound split the dark, the metallic slam of the back door being kicked open. Emma's breath lodged in her throat. 3 shadows burst into the diner. The first was Tyler Rowan, thin, trembling, hoodie hanging crooked, eyes wild with a cocktail of fear and guilt. Behind him, 2 men emerged, strangers. One was tall and wiry with a long face, patchy blonde beard, and eyes that twitched in nervous bursts. His movements were frantic, impulsive, like a man who ran on adrenaline alone. The other was bulkier, barrel chest, thick neck, shaved head glinting in the faint emergency light. His face was square and hardened, with small dark eyes that never blinked long enough to reveal thought. He carried a steel baton in his right hand, tapping it against his palm with slow menace. Emma stepped back, shaking her head. "Tyler, please, don't do this." Tyler's voice cracked. "I didn't want... They said we just had to scare you. They said you wouldn't get hurt if you stayed quiet." The large man snorted. "Plans change." The wiry one moved toward her. "Come on, sweetheart. You're going for a ride." Martha grabbed a kitchen knife and stepped forward despite her trembling. "You will not touch her." The big man shoved her aside with one brutal sweep of his arm. Martha crashed into a table, groaning as she hit the floor. Emma screamed, running toward her. But the wiry man blocked her path and reached out. That was the moment the night cracked open. Because Shadow had found her scent. The front door of the diner exploded inward, a blur of fur and fury bursting through it. Shadow flew across the room, teeth bared, muscles rigid, his sable black coat bristling like a warrior risen from the storm itself. He had followed her scent through snow, through wind, through darkness. He had run until his paws bled, and he arrived exactly when her world was collapsing. The big man swung the steel baton toward Emma, but Shadow intercepted. The metal struck Shadow's ribs with a sickening crack. Emma screamed. Martha gasped. Tyler stumbled backward in horror. Shadow hit the floor, but he did not stay down. He rose, slowly, painfully, but with eyes blazing, and he roared. A sound so deep, so primal, it felt older than language. The sound of a creature who had chosen his side, his human, his purpose. He launched himself at the big man, driving him backward into a table. Glass shattered. The man roared in pain. Cole barreled through the broken front door a moment later. Chaos erupted. The wiry man tried to grab Emma, but Cole slammed him into the counter, pinning him with an arm across the throat. Tyler stood frozen, shaking violently. "This wasn't the deal," he yelled. "You said we were just scaring her. I didn't sign on for murder." The big man struggled under Shadow's weight. The dog's teeth clamped into his sleeve, dragging him down each time he tried to rise. Cole shouted, "Shadow, hold!" Shadow growled, keeping the man pinned until Cole could cuff him. Emma flung herself beside the dog, gently touching his muzzle. "Shadow. Oh God, you're hurt." Blood speckled his fur, but his eyes stayed locked on her, refusing to close. Then the impossible happened. Shadow's tail thumped weakly against the floor, reassuring her, choosing her. Cole finally secured the last of the attackers, breathing hard, heart pounding. The diner, moments ago a tomb of terror, was now a battlefield strewn with broken glass, overturned chairs, and the remnants of a storm that had no intention of stopping outside. Shadow let out a slow breath and rested his head against Emma's arm. It was the first time she had ever seen someone, human or animal, take a blow meant for her. Her tears fell freely, landing on Shadow's fur. Cole knelt beside them, voice thick with relief and fury. "You're safe now, both of you." But even as he said it, something cold crawled through him, because the gray coat had not come for her yet. This was only the beginning. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes God sends angels to us in fur, in courage, and in the willingness to take the blow meant for another. Morning broke quietly over the snow-covered town. The kind of dawn where light moved softly through windows, as if afraid to disturb the people sleeping beneath it. But in the rusty lantern diner, nobody was sleeping. Cole Merritt stood beside the counter, speaking in low tones to responding officers, while Shadow rested on a folded blanket Martha had placed near the booth. The dog's breathing was shallow but steady. His sable black coat brushed back to reveal a bandaged patch along his ribs. Each time he shifted, a soft whine escaped him, more frustration than pain. Emma sat nearby, wrapped in a thick tan coat one of the regulars had draped around her shoulders after the attack. Her brown eyes, still swollen from crying, stared at Shadow with a mixture of guilt and awe. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the steel baton coming down, saw Shadow's body absorbing the blow that should have broken her. Martha bustled around the diner, cleaning shattered glass and overturned chairs. Normally she moved with cheerful energy, humming under her breath. But today her steps were slow, careful. Her curly hair was tied back too tightly, and her eyes darted to Emma every few seconds, as if checking she hadn't vanished. "Sweetheart," she murmured, placing a warm cup of cocoa before her. Drink something. You're shaking." Emma nodded, but didn't touch the cup. Outside, patrol cars idled. Officers moved in and out of the diner like a choreographed dance. The town had woken to the news of what happened. Word traveled fast in a small place. And slowly, people began to arrive. The bell above the diner door chimed. A man in his 70s shuffled in, thick winter coat zipped to his chin. His gray beard was untrimmed, cheeks ruddy from the cold. Mr. Halloran, the town carpenter. He held something awkwardly in both hands, a hand-stitched quilt. "She might need this," he said gruffly, not meeting Emma's eyes. "No girl deserves to be cold after a night like that." He placed it beside her and left without waiting for thanks. A moment later, 2 teenage girls approached the counter. One had freckles splashed across her face like cinnamon dust. The other wore glasses too big for her. They each held a small blueberry pie. We made this," the girl with freckles stammered. "Mom said it helps people feel better." Emma blinked at them, touched but overwhelmed. "Thank you, truly." The girls bobbed their heads and hurried out, boots crunching on snow. Then came Mrs. Donnelly, the retired music teacher. Tall, thin as a broomstick, wrapped in a violet knitted scarf. She took Emma's hand gently in her own. "We should have seen," she whispered, regret softening her wrinkled face. "We should have known something was wrong. No one hides fear that well unless they've had practice." Emma's throat tightened. She couldn't answer. More people came, some carrying food, some carrying blankets, some bringing nothing but words, simple phrases like, "We're sorry," or "You're not alone now," or "We'll stand with you." They didn't crowd her. They didn't press with questions. They simply came, one by one, laying small offerings of compassion like bricks in a foundation Emma had never believed she deserved. Cole watched quietly from a distance. There was something beautiful in the way strangers reached out, as if the town itself had turned into a single beating heart. And for the first time, Emma didn't shrink from the attention. She still trembled, but she didn't hide. Her shoulders lifted little by little with each gesture of kindness, as if her body was learning a new vocabulary, one that didn't include flinching. Shadow stirred on his blanket. Emma gasped softly. She slid off the booth and knelt beside him, her hand hovering over his side, afraid to touch him. "Shadow?" "It's okay. You're safe. Please rest." Shadow opened his eyes, deep, warm, unwavering. He looked at her, not at Cole, not at the officers, at her. Then, with deliberate effort, he pressed his nose into her palm. Emma froze. Her breath stuttered. Shadow never allowed anyone but Cole to touch him while injured. It was a rule, a boundary formed from years of trauma and training. But now, wounded and exhausted, he chose her anyway. His eyes closed as her hand settled gently along his neck. His muscles relaxed beneath her touch, surrendering the tension he'd held since the night before. Martha watched from behind the counter, murmuring under her breath, "Now, that's something holy." Cole's chest tightened. Shadow was more than a partner. He was a survivor, a creature who trusted few. And Emma? Emma had earned something rare. The dog's unconditional belief. The afternoon wore on. Officers left. The diner regained its rhythm. Emma sat near Shadow, brushing her fingers slowly along his fur as if memorizing the rise and fall of each breath. Cole pulled a chair beside her. "You're not responsible for his injury," Cole said softly. His voice held warmth, steadiness. Shadow knew exactly what he was doing. Emma shut her eyes. "If I hadn't been there," Cole interrupted gently, "Shadow doesn't protect people out of obligation. He protects them because he sees their hearts. He saw yours." Emma swallowed hard, staring at the dog. "I've spent my whole life believing the hurt was my fault, that if I just tried harder, behaved better, stayed quiet enough, maybe someone wouldn't raise a hand." "Emma," Cole said, leaning slightly closer, "you never have to apologize for wounds someone else inflicted. Not one." His tone was firm, not harsh, a truth spoken without judgment. Emma looked at him with something shifting behind her eyes, something new and fragile. "I don't know how to accept kindness," she whispered. "You don't have to know," Cole replied. "Just don't run from it." She let out a shaky laugh. "I think the town refused to let me run today." Cole smiled faintly. "It's a good town. It just needed a reminder to open its eyes." Shadow lifted his head again at the sound of Cole's voice, then nudged Emma's knee, demanding attention. Emma stroked him with a tender reverence. For the first time in what felt like years, she exhaled without shaking. Outside, evening returned like a soft blanket. Through the diner windows, faint golden light spilled onto the snow. People walked by, some waving gently at Emma. She waved back, timid but genuine. Cole stood and tugged his jacket on. "We'll have officers watch the area tonight. You'll be safe." Emma rose as well, her hand lingering on Shadow's head. "And him? Is he going to be okay?" Cole nodded. "He's tough. He's been through worse." He smiled. "But he's stubborn too. If you visit him, he'll heal twice as fast." Emma blushed faintly, warmth rising in her pale cheeks. "Then I'll visit every day." Shadow thumped his tail at that, once, hard enough to make Cole snort. Emma laughed softly, her first real laugh in days. A town had risen, a dog had chosen her. And for the first time, Emma dared to believe she was worth fighting for. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes God heals us through the kindness we never believed we deserved. The courthouse rose out of the winter morning like a solemn monument carved from stone and silence. Snow clung to its steps, melting under the boots of officers, reporters, and townspeople who had come to witness the end of a darkness that had taken root in the quiet corners of their home. Inside, the air felt heavy, thick with expectation, fear, and the fragile weight of hope. Emma Rowland stood at the front of the courtroom, hands clasped tightly before her. She wore a simple beige sweater beneath a clean coat Martha had insisted she borrow, her soft brown hair pulled back to keep it from trembling with her. Her brown eyes were steady, not fearless, but determined in a way that made her look older than her 20-something years. The faint bruises along her wrist were healing, but today she did not hide them. They were part of her truth. Cole Merritt sat at the witness bench, his tall frame straight, jaw set, gray-blue eyes watchful. Even in the courtroom, he wore the black tactical jacket that had become part of him. Beside his seat, Shadow lay obediently, ribs still wrapped but eyes alert, deep brown eyes that tracked every rise and fall of Emma's breath. And on the defendant's bench sat Tyler Rowan. He looked smaller than the man who had stormed into the diner, thinner, even more pale. His messy black hair hung over his face, and the snake tattoo along his forearm seemed to fade with every nervous twitch of his fingers. But it wasn't fear of the law that haunted him. It was regret. Real, bone-deep regret. Judge Marlene Avery presided over the courtroom. She was a woman in her mid-60s, tall and sharp-featured, with silver hair pinned into a no-nonsense bun. Her dark robes matched the stern lines of her angular face. Though known for her severity, her gray eyes often softened during cases involving vulnerable victims. A softness earned from decades of seeing people broken by the world and trying to stand again. After procedural statements, The judge nodded. "Ms. Rowland, you may speak." Emma inhaled, then stepped forward to the stand. Her knees wavered briefly, but she steadied herself with a glance toward Cole, who gave a subtle nod, and toward Shadow, who wagged his tail once in encouragement. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but unwavering. "I was afraid my whole life. Afraid of what Tyler would do when he was angry. Afraid of what the men he worked with would do if they found out I knew anything. Afraid no one would listen if I asked for help." She paused, fingers curling slightly. But fear is a strange thing. It lies. It makes you believe you are alone, even when you're not. The courtroom held its breath. Emma continued. "When Tyler came to the diner that night, he wasn't acting alone. He was following orders. But he also wasn't the same brother I grew up with. The one who tried to protect me when our father drank too much. I know that man still exists inside him, even if he lost his way." Tyler's head dropped lower. "And so," Emma said, voice tightening but strong, "I cannot forgive the things he did. I cannot forget the fear he caused." A harsh beat of silence. Then, "But I can forgive the part of him that once tried to protect me. The part that didn't want this life. The part that asked me last night not to hate him forever." Tyler sobbed, not loudly, but with the crumbling quiet of a man whose guilt had reached its final breaking point. Judge Avery nodded gravely. "Thank you, Ms. Rowland. Your testimony will be entered into record." Cole stepped up next, presenting the encrypted email metadata, footage from the diner, and forensic evidence tying the Gray Coat's operation to Tyler's forced involvement. His voice was steady, firm, professional. But beneath it was a fire, the unwavering certainty of someone who refused to lose another victim. With FBI evidence and Emma's testimony combined, the courtroom moved decisively. The weapons ring collapsed. Arrests were made across 2 counties. The Gray Coat vanished, but his network unraveled. Tyler was sentenced, but with a rehabilitation clause due to coercion and cooperation. The judge's verdict was firm but compassionate. Justice balanced with accountability. Outside the courthouse, the cold air felt different. Not sharp, not punishing, but clean, as if the town itself exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Emma stepped out beside Cole. Shadow trotted behind her, careful but eager to return to her side. Snowflakes landed on his sable fur, melting into tiny beads of water. Emma looked at the courthouse doors, then at the sky. "I don't know where to start," she said softly. "Everything feels blank, like a page that's never been written on." Cole placed his hands in his jacket pockets, his breath forming a faint cloud. "You start," he said gently, "by believing you deserve peace." Emma blinked, the words sinking deep. Shadow nudged her hand, insisting she acknowledge the moment. She laughed softly, stroking his head. "Okay, maybe I can try." Cole smiled. Trying is enough. Just as they stepped off the courthouse steps, a young officer sprinted toward them, breathless, hat almost falling off. He looked barely 30, sandy blonde hair sticking out in chaotic tufts, freckles across his cheeks. His name tag read, Deputy Riley Grant. Grant skidded to a stop. "Agent Merritt. Sir, sorry. Urgent call from the next town over." His voice shook, not from fear, but from urgency. "A girl's gone missing in the forest. Search dogs won't go past the tree line. They keep backing away and whining." He swallowed. "They're asking specifically for you and Shadow." Cole exchanged a sharp glance with Shadow. The dog's ears perked, not in alarm, but recognition. Something in the forest called to him, something he understood instinctively. Emma's breath caught. Another case? Cole nodded. Looks like it. Grant stepped closer. They said the girl's mother swears she heard singing in the woods, but no one else heard it. Emma's eyes widened slightly. Shadow stood fully now, tail stiff, gaze fixed on the distant horizon. A mystery, a warning, a calling. Cole turned back to Emma. For a moment, the world fell silent around them. "I'll go," he said softly, "but I'm not walking away from you." Emma held his gaze, for the first time, without fear, without hesitation. "I know," she whispered. "And when you come back, I'll be right here." Shadow brushed his head against her palm once more, eyes deep with meaning, as if saying, "Our story isn't finished. There's more we're meant to face." Cole stepped back. Snow swirled around them, a curtain rising rather than falling. A door had closed behind them, but another, far darker, far larger, had just opened. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes God leads us through one storm only to prepare us for the miracle waiting in the next. At the end of every storm, there is a moment when light breaks through in ways we never expected. Some call it fate, others call it resilience. But many of us know it as the quiet work of God. A reminder that even in our darkest nights, we are never walking alone. Stories like this aren't just tales of courage. They are whispers of the miracles God places in our daily lives. Through the people who protect us, the strangers who stand for us, and the compassion that rises when hope feels thin. If this story touched your heart, please share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these messages of faith and healing reach those who need them. And may God bless every one of you with protection, peace, and the quiet miracles that guide us home.